The massive screen at Earth's Global Defense Command Center flickered to life, displaying a message that would forever change human history. General Robert stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face illuminated by the harsh blue light of the alien transmission. "Your species has been selected for integration into the Galactic Federation," the metallic voice announced. The creature on screen had gray skin that seemed to shimmer like polished steel. Its 4 eyes blinked in an unsettling pattern. "Submit to our rule, or face immediate extinction. You have 6 Earth hours to decide." The room fell silent. 20 of Earth's top military commanders stared at the screen, their faces a mix of shock and determination. General Robert turned to face them, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand what we're dealing with," he said, gesturing to Intelligence Director Mary. She stepped forward, tablet in hand. The transmission came simultaneously to every major military installation and government center worldwide. Mary reported, "Our analysts have detected thousands of ships at the edge of our solar system, but there's more." She paused, her fingers moving across the tablet. "We've decoded part of their database signal. They've done this before, 47 times." Colonel Jack, the youngest person in the room, leaned forward. "What happened to those other species?" "They either submitted or were destroyed," Mary replied. "Those who submitted now serve as labor forces. Those who fought," she shook her head, "their worlds are now mining colonies operated by slaves from other conquered species." General Robert walked to the center of the room. "Options. Our nuclear arsenal won't scratch their ships," said Admiral Peter. "Their technology is at least 3 centuries ahead of ours." "Submission is not an option," Colonel Jack stated firmly. "We've seen how that ends." General Robert nodded slowly, a strange smile forming on his face. "They've conquered 47 species," he said, "but they've never met humans before." He turned back to the screen and pressed the transmit button. The alien face reappeared, its 4 eyes focusing on him. "We have received your terms," General Robert said clearly, "and we have a response. We choose neither." The alien's eyes blinked rapidly. "This is not one of the permitted choices. You will submit or be destroyed." "No," General Robert replied, his voice growing stronger. "You will leave our solar system, or you will perish. This is not a negotiation. It is a warning." Laughter echoed from the transmission. A harsh, mechanical sound. "You have no weapons that can harm us. Your technology is primitive. Your defenses are meaningless." "Perhaps," General Robert agreed. "But you should check your databases again. Look at our history. We've spent more time fighting wars than living in peace. We've survived ice ages with sticks and stones. We've built empires and torn them down. We've split the atom, walked on our moon, and sent machines beyond our solar system, not because it was easy, but because it was hard." He stepped closer to the screen. "We don't need superior technology to win. Humans have been defeating superior forces throughout our history. We are adaptable. We are relentless. And most importantly, we don't know when to quit." The alien's eyes narrowed. "You choose extinction then?" "No," General Robert said firmly. "We choose to fight. And let me be clear, if you don't leave now, we will not stop until we've freed every species you've enslaved and torn your federation apart piece by piece." He turned to Mary. "Send them our history, all of it. Let them see what happens when humans are backed into a corner." The alien studied something off screen, its eyes widening slightly. "You would fight a war you cannot win." "We've done it before," General Robert replied. "The only question is, are you prepared to face an enemy who would rather die fighting than live on their knees? You have 6 Earth hours to leave our solar system. After that, what happens next is on you." The transmission ended, leaving the room in silence. Colonel Jack cleared his throat. "They won't leave, will they?" General Robert shook his head. "No, they won't." He turned to face his commanders. "And that's exactly what I'm counting on. Sound the alarm. It's time humanity showed the galaxy why you should never corner a species that turned fighting against impossible odds into an art form. The alien command ship hovered at the edge of Mars' orbit. Inside, Commander First Rank studied the data streaming across multiple screens with growing concern. His subordinates worked quietly, analyzing the information from Earth's freely provided historical database. "Impossible," he muttered, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "Play the Battle of Thermopylae simulation again." The holographic display showed 300 warriors holding off an army of thousands. Another screen displayed World War II's Eastern Front, where soldiers fought in temperatures that would kill most species. A third screen showed the Vietnam War, where a technologically inferior force used the environment to defeat a superpower. 300 cycles of scanning their networks, Officer Second reported, and I still don't understand. They make entertainment about losing battles. They celebrate defeats as much as victories. Commander First pulled up another file. "Look at this Alamo incident. They turned a complete military defeat into a battle cry. What kind of species finds strength in failure?" Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity prepared for war in ways the aliens couldn't comprehend. In a hidden facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Robert watched as engineers swarmed over a captured alien scout ship. The ship had crashed during the initial contact, its pilot underestimating Earth's atmospheric conditions. "How long?" he asked. Lead Engineer Bill wiped grease from his hands. "Sir, their technology is advanced, but their thinking is predictable. They built everything to be perfect, but not adaptable." He patted the ship's hull. "We've already figured out how their shields work. They're designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic impacts. They never expected anyone to just shoot metal at them really, really fast." In orbit, the International Space Station had become a military command center. Commander Anna studied radar displays showing the alien fleet's position. Unlike their rigid formations, she had scattered Earth's defensive satellites in seemingly random patterns. "They're still scanning our military bases," she reported over a secure line. "They haven't noticed we've moved most of our forces underground." Back on the alien command ship, Officer Second made a disturbing discovery. "Commander, I found something concerning," he reported. "Humans have a concept called spite. They will accept damage to themselves if it means hurting their enemy more." Commander First expanded the report on his screen. "Elaborate." "In their history, when facing defeat, they often destroy their own resources to deny them to the enemy. They burn their own cities, poison their own wells. Some of their warriors committed suicide attacks just to damage enemy supplies." Another officer spoke up. "Commander, you need to see this. Their planet's climate should make most regions uninhabitable, but they live everywhere. They build cities in deserts, in Arctic regions, even in areas with active volcanoes." Commander First felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in many cycles: doubt. How do they survive in these conditions? They adapt. If they're cold, they don't wait for ideal conditions. They build fires. If they're hot, they created machines to cool their air. If they can't breathe underwater, they build vessels to carry air with them. Every limitation becomes a challenge they overcome. On Earth, General Robert received an urgent message. The alien fleet was moving, but not toward Earth. They were pulling back, regrouping. In the command ship, Commander First made his decision. "Launch the attack immediately. The longer we wait, the more time they have to adapt to our technology." Officer Second looked up from his station. "Sir, shouldn't we study them more? Their responses don't match any known species' behavior patterns." "No," Commander First said firmly. "They're still primitives. Their bravado doesn't change that fact. Begin the assault." As the alien fleet began moving toward Earth, General Robert received the news with an unexpected smile. "Sir?" Colonel Jack asked. "Why do you look pleased?" "Because," General Robert replied, "they're doing exactly what we do, attacking what they don't understand because they fear it. But there's one critical difference. He turned to face the Global Command Center's main screen, where Earth's unified forces waited for orders. "What's that, sir?" "We've spent our entire history learning from that mistake. Now let's show them why humans are the most dangerous survivors in the galaxy." The alien fleet descended upon Earth like a metallic storm. 5,000 ships, each larger than the biggest human aircraft carrier, moved in perfect geometric formations. Their synchronized approach was beautiful, ordered, and exactly what Commander Anna had been counting on. "They're so predictable," she whispered from her command post on the modified International Space Station. "All units, execute Operation Chaos." Across Earth's orbit, hundreds of seemingly dead satellites suddenly sparked to life. Instead of sophisticated energy weapons, they contained something much simpler: balls of steel, tungsten, and depleted uranium. Thousands of these metal spheres shot out in random patterns. Commander First watched in confusion as his perfect formation began reporting impacts. "Report. What primitive weapons are they using?" "Sir," Officer Second replied, "they're hitting us with metal balls, simple kinetic weapons." "Impossible. Our shields are designed to stop." "Energy weapons, sir. These are just solid objects moving at extremely high speeds." The alien formation started breaking apart as ships tried to dodge the endless stream of metal projectiles. Their shields, designed to deflect energy beams, couldn't stop solid objects moving at orbital velocities. On Earth, General Robert watched the battle through advanced telescopes. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. The newly modified alien scout ships, piloted by Earth's best fighters, shot up from hidden bases. Unlike their original design, these ships had been stripped down, rebuilt, and weaponized in ways their creators never imagined. "This is Eagle One," reported Pilot Mike, as he led the first squadron. "These alien ships handle like dreams once you remove all their safety protocols." The stolen and modified ships dove into the scattered alien formation. While the alien pilots followed strict battle protocols, the human pilots flew like there were no rules at all. They executed maneuvers that no sensible species would attempt, pushing the ships far beyond their intended limits. Commander First watched in horror as his orderly battle plan dissolved into chaos. "How are they flying our own ships better than we do?" "Sir," Officer Second reported, "they're not following any known combat doctrine. Each human pilot appears to be improvising." In space, Commander Anna launched the next phase. Hidden thrusters attached to space debris activated, turning old rocket parts and defunct satellites into guided missiles. The alien ships, already struggling with the random patterns of attack, now faced threats from every direction. "You wanted to see humanity's weapons," Commander Anna transmitted on all frequencies. "Here's what we do with our trash." On the alien command ship, panic began to spread. 300 ships had already been damaged or destroyed, not by advanced weapons, but by humans using simple physics and improvised weapons. "Sir," Officer Second shouted, "they're launching more projectiles from their moon." Commander First stared in disbelief as mass drivers on the lunar surface began firing salvos of metal slugs. The humans had turned their moon into a giant gun. Down on Earth, Engineer Bill and his team monitored the modified alien ships. "General," he reported to Robert, "we've cracked more of their codes. Their communications are too rigid, too structured. We can predict their entire command chain." General Robert nodded. "Do it." Across the battlefield, the alien fleet's communication network suddenly filled with contradicting orders. Their rigid command structure, once a strength, became a weakness as ships received multiple conflicting commands. Commander First watched his perfect battle plan crumble. "How?" he demanded. "How are they defeating our superior technology with primitive weapons?" On the space station, Commander Anna allowed herself a small smile. "All units, execute final phase." The modified alien ships suddenly released clouds of what appeared to be dust. The alien fleet's sensors, trying to track thousands of tiny objects, began to fail. "It's just chaff," Commander First roared. Simple metal strips. Sometimes the old ways work best, General Robert transmitted to the alien commander. You studied our history but learned the wrong lesson. We don't win because we're stronger or more advanced. We win because we never, ever fight fair. As his fleet fell into disarray, Commander First finally understood humanity's true strength. They hadn't survived their harsh world through superiority. They had survived by adapting, by improvising, by turning everything, even their garbage, into weapons. Full retreat, he ordered, but he already knew. This was just the beginning of humanity's response. 3 months after the first battle of Earth, Admiral Tom walked through the captured alien shipyard floating in deep space. What had once been a perfectly organized facility now looked like a chaotic mix of human and alien technology. Engineers had torn apart advanced ships and rebuilt them in ways that would have horrified their original designers. "How's our new fleet coming along?" he asked Engineer Bill, who was covered in alien hydraulic fluid. Bill grinned, pointing to the massive ships around them. "Better than expected. These aliens built everything to be perfect, which means they built in way too many backup systems. We've stripped out all the redundancies and replaced them with weapons." "Sir," a young technician ran up with a tablet, "we cracked another part of their database. We know where they're getting their fuel." Admiral Tom studied the information. The Alien Federation had a single massive supply line, running through a system they considered too primitive to be a threat. They were about to learn how wrong they were. On the alien homeworld, Commander First faced the Federation Council. His defeat at Earth had shaken their entire empire. "They're just primitives," one council member shouted. "How did they defeat our most advanced fleet?" Commander First raised all 4 hands for silence. "You don't understand. They took our technology and made it better in 3 months. They found weaknesses we never knew existed. And now," he paused, displaying the latest intelligence, "now they're building ships that don't follow any of our design protocols." "Impossible," another council member declared. "Our designs are perfect." "That's exactly the problem," Commander First replied. "We built everything to be perfect. They build things to work, no matter how ugly or inefficient they might look." Warning alarms suddenly blared through the chamber. On the main screen, reports flooded in from their primary fuel processing system. A fleet of mismatched ships had appeared, ships that looked like a child's drawing of proper spacecraft. Admiral Tom stood on the bridge of his flagship, a hybrid monster of human and alien technology. They called it the Ugly Victory, a name that made most aliens deeply uncomfortable. "All ships, execute attack pattern Thunder Run," he ordered. The human fleet moved in ways that defied proper space combat doctrine. Ships spun and tumbled, presenting random aspects to enemy fire. Some ships had been stripped down to little more than engines and guns, while others were armored with layers of salvaged metal. The alien defenders, expecting proper ship-to-ship combat, found themselves facing vessels that ignored all conventional tactics. Human ships deliberately rammed through their perfect formations, their improvised armor shrugging off hits that should have destroyed them. "How are they surviving direct hits?" an alien commander demanded. "They've covered their ships in layers of ablative armor," his sensor officer reported. "It's just crude metal plates welded together, but they're sacrificing them to absorb our shots." Admiral Tom watched as his fleet tore through the alien defenses. Begin Phase 2. Across the battlefield, human ships started dropping what looked like space junk. The aliens ignored it, focusing on the obvious threats, until the junk suddenly came alive. Hundreds of miniature drones, built from salvaged alien parts and human ingenuity, swarmed toward the fuel processing stations. "Status report," Tom called out. His tactical officer grinned. "Sir, they're still trying to target our drones with their fancy targeting systems. They haven't realized the drones are being controlled by human gamers back on Earth." The alien defense fleet watched in horror as human ships began targeting their supposedly impenetrable fuel tanks. Instead of trying to breach the tanks' advanced shields, The humans simply pushed them out of their carefully calculated orbits. They're not even trying to blow them up. An alien commander realized too late. They're just making them crash into each other. Admiral Tom opened a channel to all frequencies. Attention, Alien Federation. Your supply line is now under human control. We don't want your territory. We don't want your empire. But if you ever threaten Earth again. He paused, watching as another fuel tank tumbled out of orbit. Well, we're just getting started showing you how humans fight. In the Federation Council chamber, Commander First watched the destruction of their perfect system. Now do you understand? He asked quietly. They don't think like us. They don't fight like us. And they're just getting warmed up. The Federation Council's new psychological warfare expert stood proudly before his leaders. I have studied human behavior extensively, he announced. I know how to break their spirit. Commander First, now serving as an advisor, shook his head. I advise against this. The Council ignored him. Within days, the Federation launched their new strategy. They broadcast images across Earth showing their vast empire, their massive fleets, and the futility of resistance. In response, humans started making memes about it. Sir, Officer Second reported to Commander First. I don't understand. They're turning our intimidation broadcasts into something called jokes. On Earth, General Robert reviewed the alien broadcast with his staff. They're trying to scare us by showing how big their empire is. He laughed. Send them the historical file about the British Empire being defeated by farmers with muskets. The Federation's next attempt involved showing the fate of other species who had resisted. They'd broadcast images of destroyed worlds and enslaved populations. Humanity's response was not what they expected. Sir, a confused alien communications officer reported, the humans are sharing these broadcasts everywhere. They're adding text that says, look how many friends we need to save. Commander First sighed. I tried to warn the Council. Humans don't respond to intimidation like other species. The Federation's next strategy targeted human emotions. They sent images of their overwhelming military might, expecting to trigger fear. Instead, Engineers Bill and his team studied the broadcasts carefully, pointing out design flaws in the alien ships. Look at those engine configurations, he said excitedly. They're still using standard designs. We can use this. The alien psychological warfare team grew desperate. They sent messages describing the pointlessness of human resistance against such overwhelming odds. Sir, Officer Second reported to Commander First, the humans are responding with something from their history called the Spartans. They're quoting the response, come and take it, in thousands of languages. In orbit around Earth, Commander Anna received new intelligence from the freed alien worlds. The Federation's trying to break our spirit. She smiled. Let's show them what happens when they make humans angry. The next Federation broadcast was interrupted by a transmission from Earth. It showed humans teaching freed alien species how to fight back. Former slave races learned guerrilla warfare, resistance tactics, and most importantly, how to improvise weapons from everyday items. You tried to break our spirit. General Roberts' voice echoed across space. Instead, you gave us a reason to fight harder. Every world you showed us is another world we're going to free. The Federation Council watched in growing horror as their psychological warfare backfired spectacularly. Reports came in from across their empire. Rebellions were breaking out everywhere, using human tactics. Don't you understand? Commander First addressed the Council. Their greatest strength isn't their weapons or their technology. It's their spite. Every time you tell them they can't do something, they take it as a challenge. On a Federation colony world, alien rebels successfully destroyed a military base using tactics learned from human history. Their leader, holding a copy of The Art of War, translated into their language, sent a message to Earth. We understand now. We're learning to fight like humans. The Federation's final attempt at psychological warfare was to demonstrate their absolute control over their empire's communications and supply networks. 2 days later, Engineer Bill's team had hacked their entire system. How? Demanded a council member. How did they defeat our unbreakable security? Sir, Officer Second replied, reading the report, they tried random things until something worked. They call it brute forcing. It's not elegant. It's not advanced. They just kept trying everything possible until they found a way in. In Earth's command center, General Robert addressed the United Human Forces. They thought they could break us by showing us the size of their empire. He pointed to the map showing spreading rebellions. All they did was show us how many allies we could have. Commander First, watching the empire crumble, finally understood humanity's true nature. They don't break, he told the council. They adapt. They get angry. They get creative. And worst of all, they teach others to do the same. Across the galaxy, the Federation's perfect order was dissolving into chaos. But for humans, chaos had always felt like home. Commander Kate stood before a gathering unlike any in galactic history. In a massive underground chamber on Earth, representatives from 30 formerly enslaved species listened to her speak. Each of them had fought against the Federation and lost, until they learned the human way of fighting. They called us primitives, Kate addressed the crowd. They thought their perfect technology made them unbeatable. But look around this room. What do you see? A tall alien with crystalline skin stood up. I see warriors who refuse to submit, he said in carefully learned English. My people were engineers before the Federation enslaved us. They forced us to build their ships perfectly. Now we build them the human way, ugly but effective. Another delegate, a small creature with 6 eyes, raised all 4 hands. They took away our weapons, but humans taught us that anything can be a weapon. Last week, my people destroyed a Federation base with farming equipment. Kate nodded, pointing to a massive screen showing the galaxy map. Red dots indicated Federation strongholds. Green dots showed liberated worlds. The green was spreading. On the Federation capital world, the Council watched their empire crumble. How? One member demanded. How are they coordinating all these attacks? Commander First, still trying to make them understand, explained wearily. They're not coordinating. That's what makes it impossible to stop. Each species is fighting in their own way, using what humans call asymmetric warfare. There is no single plan to disrupt. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. On one world, former slaves had turned mining equipment into weapons. On another, they had reprogrammed service robots to rebel. Each uprising was different, unpredictable, and thoroughly human in its creativity. Back on Earth, Engineer Bill presented his latest creation to the alien delegates. We call it the Freedom Engine, he said, showing them a deliberately simple design. It's not the most efficient drive system, but you can build it with basic industrial equipment. No advanced factories needed. The aliens studied the plans with growing excitement. One of them, a former Federation scientist, looked up in surprise. This breaks 17 different engineering principles. Yeah, Bill grinned, but it works. Sometimes the best solution isn't the perfect one. It's the one you can actually build with what you have. In orbit, Commander Anna coordinated with rebel fleets across 3 sectors. The alien ships now moved in unpredictable patterns, abandoning the rigid formations the Federation had forced them to use for centuries. Your people fly like crazy beings. A rebel commander transmitted, his voice filled with something like joy. We never knew space combat could be this creative. The Federation Council received news of another major shipyard falling to rebel forces. This one hadn't been destroyed. It had been converted. The perfect assembly lines now produced improvised weapons and modified ships. Look at this. Officer Second showed Commander First a transmission. The rebels are sharing weapon designs across the galaxy, but each species is modifying them based on their own abilities. The rock people are making gravity weapons. The gas beings are creating atmosphere scramblers. Commander First watched the reports pile up. They've learned the most dangerous human trait, Adaptation. On Earth, Commander Kate concluded her meeting with the alien delegates. Each species would return to their sector with new weapons, new tactics, and most importantly, new hope. Remember, she told them, the Federation's greatest weakness is their belief in perfection. They don't know how to handle the unexpected. So get creative. Get messy. Fight in ways that make no sense to them. A small alien child, brought by one of the delegates, tugged at Kate's uniform. Is it true? The child asked. On Earth, you let young ones play war games. Kate smiled, kneeling down. We call them strategy games. And yes, sometimes the best battle plans come from thinking like a child, seeing possibilities adults might miss. As the delegates departed, each carrying the seeds of revolution, General Robert received word of 12 new systems declaring independence from the Federation. They're not just learning to fight like us, he told Kate. They're learning to think like us, to question everything, to try the impossible. Kate watched the ships depart. The Federation wanted a perfect, orderly galaxy. Instead, they're getting humanity's greatest export, creative chaos. And across the stars, the revolution spread, one impossible victory at a time. The Federation's capital world, once a monument to perfect order, burned. Not in the way most species would expect. There was no planetary bombardment, no massive fleet battle. Instead, a million small acts of chaos had brought down an empire. General Robert stood on the bridge of the ugly victory, watching the Federation's last stronghold fall. Beside him, Commander First had become an unlikely ally, choosing to help end the war that his warnings could have prevented. I still don't understand completely, Commander First admitted. How did you defeat an empire that ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years? Robert smiled. We didn't do it alone. Look down there. Below, the streets were filled with rebels from 40 different species. Former slaves now used their chains as weapons. Maintenance workers had turned clinging robots into combat drones. Even the Federation's automated traffic system had been reprogrammed to cause gridlock around military bases. Your people taught the galaxy how to be creative, Commander First said. How to be unpredictable. In the Federation's central command tower, Commander Kate led the final assault. Her team included humans and aliens working together, each bringing their unique abilities to the fight. Security system ahead, a crystalline alien reported. Unbreakable codes. Kate grinned. Then we don't break them. Engineer Bill, show them the human way. Bill stepped forward with a simple mechanical device. Sometimes the best hack isn't digital. He attached it to the door's hinges. Sometimes you just remove the door. The Federation Council found themselves surrounded not by a professional military force, but by something far more terrifying. People who had learned to improvise. Surrender, Kate offered. Not to Earth, not to any single power. Surrender to freedom. The Council's leader stood, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion. But what about order? What about perfection? The galaxy was never meant to be perfect, Kate replied. It was meant to be free. In orbit, Admiral Tom received reports from across the galaxy. The Federation's perfect empire had fallen not to a superior force, but to a superior idea. The concept that anyone could fight back if they were creative enough. Engineer Bill's team had already begun converting the Federation's rigid communication network into an open system. The first message sent across it was simple. From Earth to all free peoples, welcome to chaos. 1 month later, Earth hosted the first Galactic Council of Free Peoples. Representatives from every liberated species gathered to decide the future. The humans had insisted on one condition. No species would rule over another. General Robert addressed the gathering. We didn't fight this war for power. We fought it because we believe every species has the right to find our own way. He paused, looking at the diverse crowd. Even if that way looks messy to others. Commander First, now representing his own liberated people, stood to speak. We thought order meant perfection. Humans taught us that adaptation, creativity, and even disorder can be strengths. At the edge of known space, a new species prepared their first invasion fleet. Their scientists detected the radio signals from conquered Federation worlds and saw an opportunity. Then they received the warnings, thousands of them, from every species in the former Federation. But one message, repeated in every language, stood out. We are the humans of Earth. 3 years ago, an advanced empire told us to submit or perish. We chose neither. Instead, we taught the galaxy to fight back. Our weapons aren't just ships and guns, they're creativity, adaptability, and spite. We turned slaves into warriors, tools into weapons, and perfect order into beautiful chaos. If you're thinking of invasion, remember this. We warned them, perish, and they did. How many warnings do you need? The invasion fleet turned back. In Earth's Global Defense Command, General Robert watched the alien ships retreat. Think they got the message? Commander Kate nodded. They understand now. The galaxy isn't ruled by the strongest or most advanced species anymore. No, Robert agreed. It's protected by the most stubborn, creative, and adaptable ones. He looked at the new galactic map, showing hundreds of free worlds. And we're still teaching them new tricks. Across the stars, a new era had begun. Not an era of perfect order, but one of creative chaos, where every species was free to find their own path, no matter how messy that path might be. After all, humans had proven that sometimes the best solutions aren't perfect. They just work.